We're here to celebrate the life of Sid Chow, a father, a husband, a grandfather, a friend, a colleague, a longtime documentarian, an activist, and an organizer extraordinaire, and a friend to many. For those who don't know me, my name is Terry Hunter, and I'm honored to serve as your MC for this afternoon's gathering. I also carry the name Nangulga, which in Haida means industrious one. I knew Sid through the Heart of the City Festival and Vancouver Moving Theatre, of which I am a co-founder and executive director of Vancouver Moving Theatre, along with my wife, Savannah, who's here in the hall. And we together also are the founders and directors of the Heart of the City Festival. And I also want to acknowledge Teresa Vandertuen, who's also here too from the festival. It was through this work that we got to know Sid, and even more importantly, got to know Sid as a close friend and a dear colleague. We are fortunate to have with us today Sid's family, his daughter Kaylee and son Jordan, and his grandchildren Zuba and Alexandra. Thank you so much for coming and traveling from Victoria and Los Angeles. I'm glad that you guys got through. Thank you. I first met Sid 20 years ago in 2003 when he came to document with Shaw Community Television the groundbreaking Downtown East Side community play, which is produced by the Carnegie Community Center and Vancouver Moving Theatre. And every year since then, we've worked with Sid and collaborated with him. He became a colleague and a dear friend. So it was in that work that I really got to know Sid, but it was the times I really enjoyed Sid were the long lunches and suppers that we had at local restaurants like the Newtown and Gainwa, where we would shoot the shit, talk about community, and we also shared anecdotes of our mutual connection to Battleford, Saskatchewan, where my ancestors settled in the early 1900s, and my mother, Mary Lockhart, was born. And my mother was raised on the Red Pheasant First Nations Reserve, where my grandfather, Alexander Lockhart, was the farm instructor. And this piece of family history I share with you now in light of Sid's connection and his family history to this reserve. Sid Chow, Chinese name Ju Ming Fu, born in rural southeast China in 1949 in the province of Guangdong, county of Huiping, in the village of Gao Bi Hop, which in English means dog leg hamlet. I'd like to know more about where the name came from. A year after his birth, Sid's grandparents brought Sid to Canada with falsified documents, making him what is commonly known as a paper son. He was raised by his grandparents, Norman Tan and Wong Noi, in Battleford, Saskatchewan, in the family grocery store, which my family also shopped at. Only in his teens did he finally learn the people raising him were not his birth parents. The 1923 Exclusion Act separated many Chinese Canadian families and shattered Sid's family, where family members became complete strangers, leaving Sid's family dysfunctional and broken. Growing up in Battleford, he got to know members of the Red Pheasant First Nations Reserve, which was located south of town, about 25 miles. Bullied as a member of a racialized community and experiencing racial discrimination firsthand taught him to fight back in order to survive in a hostile Canadian environment. This traumatic experience, coupled with learning of the legislated injustices dealt to the First Nations community in Saskatchewan and across Canada, were all steps in formulating a politicized Sid Chow. In Battleford, Sid met his future wife, Lorraine Michalowski. They had 2 children, Kaylee and Jordan, and in turn, 2 grandchildren here with us. Just hang on a sec, guys. Zuva and Alexandra. And they settled in Vancouver. Sid cherished the time he spent with his family, And while the marriage eventually ended, Sid never had a bad word to say about Lorraine, and he spoke of her with love. He also expressed the love and pride he felt for his children, Kaylee and Jordan, and his grandchildren, Zuva and Alexandra. Sid was a community activist in the making, concerned with human rights and social justice, and in making the world a better place so that his children and grandchildren would not have to endure the same bitter, humiliating hardships. Over the next 5 decades, Sid would find himself extremely vocal with many activist organizations, and the following are but a small smattering of his involvements. The Sierra Club of BC in saving the environment, Wood Squat, squatting in the former Woodward's department store for social housing, APEC, the Asian Pacific Economic Cooperation protest, resulting in a riot at the Hyatt, which landed Sid in jail and on the front pages of the newspapers. The Head Tax Family Society of Canada, the Downtown Eastside Neighborhood Council, No One is Illegal, the Cope Party, the Green Party, the NDP, the Chinese Canadian National Council, Access, Association of Chinese Canadian Equality and Solidarity Society, ACWW, the Asian Canadian Writers Workshop, ICTV, W2 Woodwards, and numerous letters to the editor and opinion column pieces in the papers. The list goes on and on and on. As Sid often quipped, "I am not in this for a popularity contest." This self-described manner, another way of saying born to raise shit, made Sid very popular with his friends and colleagues. And this is a good way to segue to the next phase of Sid's today's gathering, stories and memories and presentations on the popular and much loved Sid Chan. But before we get to our speakers, which will go across the circle this way, we're going to begin with a short film of rarely seen footage of Sid Chow 10. Ladies and gentlemen.
Comments to Access TV at telus.net. We are not shocked.
All right.
Yo, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Talk to you later. We're just here. We'd say hello, and I got to get back on the camera. So, good for you. Talk to you later.
No, but the whole point is that we're supposed to be cool rappers.
Go get us the cool rapper.
Wait, what?
Our kids' news getting worse and will get worser here.
Bill made a good choice, maybe a yay.
Love you for. Forward the news is getting worse. Plus Joe Jim.
Next verse. All kids missing monthly, the family get together.
Plus hope next year is better, though not likely, eh? Oh well. Gonna number 2 shampoo, shave and wait for Santa.
May have good or naughty balance to deal with a vec.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. We are family. Love you all. Big hi to my Kisi plus all of moi, please.
Later.
just cheer. Sounds egregious, fill my ear. Just a negativity scene, negativity scene.
We are here together to celebrate the life of Sid Chow Tan, my father. He was Dad to me. I will miss Dad greatly. What can I tell you about my father? My father was a man who cared. I believe caring came naturally to him. He cared about things like injustice, suffering, and people's inhumanity to people. His answer to why so many bad things happened was that people were often selfish and cruel, and this was one of life's truths. Another truth was that this selfishness and cruelty deserved resistance. Whether opposing, for example, environmental victimization such as Shell oil abuses in Nigeria, or whether opposing unfairness against Chinese head taxpayers, First Nations, or working people closer to home, he cared enough to make his voice heard. His wide range of concerns was really a belief in the solidarity of the innocent and wronged. My father believed in the good struggle. Sometimes the good struggle meant outright protest. Other times it meant ensuring stories were told of all people regardless of race or class. Asked how he would define his role as executive producer of the community television show Access Television, he replied, "Making sure the show gets done." Telling stories often involved a struggle for budget, and not always just monetarily. He believed in a spiritual budget that needed to be nurtured so that people would be productive. My father could laugh at life. This might find its expression in laughing at very wealthy people facing a harsh reality like losing a lot of money. Those people were just weaseling, wanking, cheating, conniving, lapdog lackeys of the capitalist imperialist system. As much as he could laugh at the comfortable being afflicted, behind the humor was a hope for the afflicted to be comforted. Although he cared, struggled, and laughed, one thing I always wondered about my father was his real stance on transformation. Did things really change deeply? Could things really change deeply? There is a saying, the fundamental things apply as time goes by. I'm sure my father would have a deep comment about worldly transformation, spiritual transformation, and the transformation from the strict to the permissive. He would probably say something like, if you believe in transformation, then make it happen. Father, I am transformed for the better because of you. Thank you.
So, hey Deb, often started the rambling conversations between Sid and I. Sid would be ruminating on a cause or a hidden or emerging story that we should tackle. I became one of Sid's sounding boards in 1986, soon after I was transferred from Rogers Cable TV in Toronto to the recently acquired system in Vancouver. We muddled through 36 years together, producing monthly Chinese community magazine shows, from Chinatown Today, Chinatown Tonight, W2 TV, Carnegie TV, which was under Access TV, run by the Full Figure Media Society, documenting personal stories and events, including the fight for democracy, head tax rallies, the first marches for murdered and missing women in the downtown East Side, the campaign for affordable housing, Indigenous history and stories, setup of safe injection sites, even a Chinese opera, and important personal documentaries for Sid on the hidden stories of the histories of Vancouver's Chinese community, Gold Mountain Diaries, including Chinese immigrants who fought for Canada while unable to become citizens, and his own immigration story featured in Paper Sons and Daughters. Even though Sid seemed laid back, he was always inching forward, gathering, building, and most importantly, keeping up connections. He stepped up to take on challenges, running for a seat on municipal council as a member of COPE, taking a leadership role on the Chinese-Canadian National Council, being involved with developing Chinese-Canadian theatre and writers, appearing before the CRTC many times in support of community media funding. As he often said, he was a salesman at heart and inclination. Networking and building relationships has pretty much been my forte in life. Working alongside Sid, I learned how to develop the long game of community building. He grew up in North Battleford, Saskatchewan, witnessing his grandfather gathering his community round the tables of their restaurant and learning the process of how to make change for the better. With tongue-in-cheek, Sid appointed himself as Mystic Relations Director of the Gold Mountain Leisure Research Institute. He often said he would rather be at Guys and Dolls Billiards than working, but I dare say that he did some of his best thinking there and built lifelong connections in the various restaurants and venues scattered throughout Chinatown. Sid often led rallies with, "I'm a cheerleader. When I say people, you say power. When I say justice, you say now." Sid is cheering us on from his Gold Mountain Institute, while the struggle still continues against the weaseling and the wanking. Thank you, Sid, for the long walk beside you and inviting me to be part of your community while mentoring me to watch and listen with a wider perspective. I hope you're enjoying a fatty and harvesting from a bountiful fresh vegetable garden. Peace, my friend.
2 weeks after my dad died, I dreamed of him, young and in a suit. And I must have been young too, because I thought, Daddy. I held him for a long time, so happy to see him. My early years living in Melfa Court at UBC have remained idyllic, and I don't know how true it is, but that is how I have always remembered it. My father did so many fun fatherly stuff with us: swimming, soccer, skating, biking, and playing. At the time, my mother considered carob a treat. Didn't work. One day, my father mixed me up a giant glass bottle of strawberry milk, my favorite, and I walked around the complex swigging my strawberry milk that my daddy had let me have, feeling like a boss. I'm not sure exactly how it played out, but I do know that when my mother left my father, things changed quickly. Eventually, she took us to live in Penticton, and we did not get to see him as often. I think things were very difficult for him. He had lost a high-paying job and his family in a short amount of time. As children, we did not understand that he did not have the means to come and see us as often as he may have wanted to, and we missed him. One day at lunch hour in Penticton, my father just showed up. He took my brother and me to the library, where behind a bush he had hidden us a delicious picnic. It was the best surprise of my life. Our father was a deeply complex and sometimes troubled man. He had a really hard upbringing that he would sometimes share, but stop himself as it got emotional. He admitted to being stunted in some ways by his trauma, but still fiercely loyal to the people who had raised him. I think it was his empathy for their circumstance that would not allow him to fully explore all the hurts that befell him. He did talk about intergenerational trauma and its effect, but in a theoretical kind of way. He was happy that his granddaughters were living lives in which they were reminded of their preciousness and not just their deficiencies. He was very critical of himself, and this led to being critical of others. At times, he was working on this, sending me an article on self-compassion about 2 years ago. My father had a hard time telling us how he felt in person. However, he would write us beautiful letters in his even more beautiful handwriting, letting us know how much we were loved and how the distance between us broke his heart. There was another world where our father took us to live in Hong Kong. I used to fantasize about that life. I would even be able to do this in Cantonese. It did not pan out, but knowing that my dad wanted me was a gift when he was not around. 6 weeks after my dad died, I felt like my skin was so thinned. Like the pain of walking around this world without parents was too much. My armor so lacking My dad would have died for me, and now there was no one left who would so easily, albeit hypothetically, exchange their life for mine. No one who might not living would be unthinkable and unbearable. And although it is the natural order of things to lose one's parents, it sometimes feels more than I can bear. My father was blessed with so many friends. He had longtime friends and new friends. He was also a very friendly man. He would chat up anyone who would listen. He was surprisingly wholesome. He would bore us at length talking about his favorite show, When Calls the Heart. He said he found the name for what he was, a hearty. I teased him once that he was not exactly the demographic for that show. He said with all sincerity, "What do you mean?" He had a stringent moral code and very strong values, a longtime environmentalist, and when he came to meet my new baby, I was embarrassed to tell him I was using disposable diapers. He could see that I was exhausted and ashamed. He said, "Yeah, well, think of how much water is wasted with cloth." Also, during that visit, I was a bit nervous to breastfeed in front of him, but my values also run strong, and I felt like I should fight through any shame around bearing my breasts around anyone, particularly when it came to feeding my baby. So I tried without apology to be as casual and normal as I could as I took out my breast and fed my daughter. After she latched, he walked over to us and gave her a kiss on the forehead. Was there a more perfect response? So generous to me at that time. So generous in general. I saw him give out many a cigarette and a bit of money when he could, easily grab a check whenever he was able. He only cared about money in that he knew how it felt not to have enough. When he turned 65 and after he got his latest apartment, he felt so much gratitude at having enough. He lived meagerly but was tickled and thankful that he felt secure. He did not believe he needed more than enough, but having enough meant the world to him. I loved this about him. I loved that he did not believe in the hoarding of money and that he could be so grateful just to have enough. I strive to feel similarly in this consumeristic world we live in. I will continue to strive to feel similarly because I believe as he did. Enough is enough. I have been rocked at times thinking about his life and the lives that led up to it, the hardships and the resilience. I try to stop myself from getting lost, not just in this current grief, but the grief around what could have been. I have spent too much time being a time traveler in my mind. I want to accept and make peace with the fact that my father was all parts human. He experienced joy along with hardships. He loved people, he loved his family and his friends. He could feel overburdened, but also would easily count his blessings. I believe he is no longer burdened, but also no longer able to love me. I don't know if that is a fair trade, but that is all there is. I just also want to extend I feel so humbled and grateful for everything that all of you all have done. This was all put together for us. And the response has just been, it's just, we're overwhelmed. And I want to start saying names, but I'm scared I'll forget some, so I'm not going to. You know who you are, and thank you so much.
We invited Libby Davies to come. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it, so she sent a letter and asked me to share it with you. Dear friends and family of Sid, and this is Libby Davies, the former city councillor and member of parliament and a former local resident of this community. Dear friends and family of Sid, I'm so sorry I cannot be there in person today because I would if I could. I have no doubt the gathering will be strong, beautiful, and full of meaning for everyone, because it emanates from the powerful and positive impact Sid had on our community and all of us personally. I cannot recall the exact day or even the year I first encountered Sid, but it sure goes way back to the 1970s. He was a young'un, as Jean Swanson, who's sitting in the back there, would say, working on community television and covering community news and events and even City Hall. And even then, I was always struck by Sid's direct and no BS way of approaching everything and everyone. He would always look you in the eye and tell you like it is, and I liked that. I sure appreciated and admired his community media savvy skills and his dedication to go after the story and make sure the community folks were heard 100%, and he never left people out. Later, I had the good fortune to support and work with Sid in his epic and courageous campaign to offer an official apology for the awful historic wrong of the head tax and for compensation. Wow. To see him in action was quite something. He organized, he supported the elders in the Chinese community, he spoke truth to power, and he never took no for an answer. These were times when it was not popular to advocate for head tax redress, and regrettably there were leaders in the community and elected representatives who wanted nothing to do with righting the wrong of Canada's history. But Sid never gave up, and he never lost faith in the integrity of his own family history and that of the community overall. I remember so clearly the day community members gathered at Thornton Park near the train station as a new journey began to Ottawa for the official apology by the Government of Canada. I know it would not have happened without the slogging and enduring work of Sid Chow Tan. Over many decades, I was honored to call him friend, neighbor, political ally, and community champion. I loved his smile and his deep laugh and his straggly hair and his beard as he peered at you intently, launching into action. What a true leader of the downtown east side and Chinatown he was. We can learn from his leadership that was always emphatic, loving, and caring for people. And as we mourn our loss of this giant in our community, we also celebrate his life and times and know he was simply the best. Rest in peace, Sid. Your memory and work continue with us all. Libby Davies, former city councillor, member of parliament for Vancouver East, and former local resident. Thank you, Libby.
Sid Chow Tan. Sid Tan, from iconoclast to icon. Mao, godfather of Chinese-Canadian head tax redress, where the pivotal moment was Sid Guangdong slagging Ottawa on national TV. Siduper Productions cable host of the We Are Not Shaw show on Shaw. Joint chairperson and president of the Sierra Club, Asian Canadian Writers Workshop, and Head Tax Families of Canada. Sid's True Heart, Cardiac, the Heart of the City Festival. The China-born paper son of a low-Waqu head taxpayer, Sid got his street creds being busted protesting at the riot at the Hyatt. A bona fide hero / champion fighting social injustice, Sid even took on Giant Shell Oil and connected Battleford, Saskatchewan to Vancouver, Chinatown to the downtown east side, theory to practice, art to activism, and always power to people. In his own immortal lyrics, I'm a Chinatown cowboy, ain't nothing better than that. And Sid made it so. Goodbye, Tanibus. That's what I called him. Farewell, best friend forever. Cut to Chinatown cowboy riding off into the big videoscape. Large and in charge, you stood up, were counted, and made a big-ass difference, recording and making history. Sydney, Lancelot, Chow Ming Phi Tan, 1949 to 1922. The greatest of all time, sporting the trademark goatee. Rest in power, brother.
Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the roses falling. 'Tis you must go and I must bide.
News of Sid Tan's passing reverberated across the country, including the East Coast and here in Montreal. I wanted to share with you the profound influence that Sid had on my career as a documentary filmmaker. I first met Sid nearly 20 years ago when I was fresh out of film school and hoping to make a documentary on the Chinese Head Tax and Exclusion Act. Sid introduced me to head taxpayers and descendants that he had been organizing with, and so generously shared with me decades of archive footage that he had shot of the fight for redress. But it was the stories that Sid told me of the Lo Wah Kyu and the people around him that made me realize you didn't need a Hollywood film or a fairy tale to find heroes and legends. They exist in the everyday around you. Thank you, Sid, for showing me the power of community storytelling and the importance of documenting the moments that on one level can feel so ordinary, but over time you realize become the defining moments. Sid leaves behind a video archive and a body of work that is the collective memory of our community. His legend lives on in all of us who he organized with, mentored, and inspired. Sid, you now walk amongst the Lo Wah Kyu, and you too represent the best of us and all that we can aspire to be.
I first want to say thank you to Kaylee and Jordan, Ziva, and Alexandra for lending Sid to us. He's made immeasurable contributions, as we've all heard. It was good to hear about Guangdong. That was Sid's patron saint, and he is a well-known historical figure, a folk hero. Became a semi-fictional character in classical Chinese literature. Eventually he was deified. Chinese society worshipped him, depending, as an upholder of good, a defender of integrity, personifying loyalty, courage, and righteousness. And I've got my Sid Sanctified Guangdong on, and I know that the spirit of Guangdong is for artists and writers, as well as soldiers, and Sid was certainly all of those things. I met Sid in 1986 at cable TV, and we had a lot of good times doing a variety of shows. The one that we founded was Earth Scene. We did environmental issues for about 6 years, and we won 2 awards in a Community Media Association contest of 4 states and 2 provinces, and best overall and best producers. And as you may have noticed, Sid didn't get too many medals. He did get a Jubilee Queen's Medal in 2012, which was an honor for him. However, he didn't spend a lot of time tooting his own horn. And so therefore, when we actually decided to spend some time tooting our horn on Earth Scene, it came in a stellar way, and we had a great time producing it. And that came out of work we did with the BC Environmental Network, of which I was an executive director, and that was an environmental network of 250 environmental groups. Sid was a member based in Vancouver and Victoria for the Sierra Club, and he was also a board member of the BC Environmental Network for several years. And thank God he was, because I know everyone who's worked with Sid on a board knows that he is always there in an emergency at the last minute, and we did quite a few overnighters over the years. And Sid, you know, he just never really complained, and when he did, he'd get on a soapbox and let it rip. And if that didn't work, he was struggling with issues and people and personalities sometimes in the bigger scheme. Put their name on a piece of paper and stick it in a shoe and go for a walk. And after that, he'd have a clearer mind. So I just wanted to say he was a good friend, a great friend. We enjoyed a lot of things. He enjoyed the Folk Fest. He took his kids there every year for like 20 years. We did that for a few years here and there. And we enjoyed nature. He was a fierce defender of nature. He did need to be told to just, sit down, shut up, breathe, and go for a walk. And like every activist, sometimes, you need to hear that. And Sid, who worked very, very hard, took satisfaction in that. So I just wanted to close with there's a few comments or quotes that I think reflect Sid's attitude and approach from various thinkers, and I'll be brief. This one's from Lao Tse, about 500 BCE is when he lived. He was a Chinese philosopher. And from him, this reminds me of Sid, all of this. From caring comes courage. Great acts are made of small deeds. And from Sun Tzu, who was a Chinese general, The Art of War, Sid used to quote him on his email signature line quite often, again from around 500 BCE. Sun Tzu says, strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory. Tactics without strategy is noise before defeat. Now, some might think Sid was just a crazy workaholic. He did enjoy working. He liked working with people of all kinds of backgrounds, and he had to manage the passion of young activists in particular, and even hardened activists. So his philosophy was like, do your work, then step back. It's the only path to serenity, and then roll up a doobie. So that was Sid's medicine. I wanted to just briefly say that he did push for legalization long before other people did. He ran for City Hall in 2014. At the same time, he was advocating for 8-plant immunity, so everyone could, own 8 plants and grow their own stuff, send it to the Compassion Club, give medicinal help to people who needed it, and take the crime and the murder and mayhem out of the drug trade in terms of pot, and give people in small towns something to do, making a living legally. So he was that and more. Another thing in terms of activism, Sid's view was activism is your rent for living on the planet. And fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. And despite all the diversity and inclusiveness, Sid was always practical. Always remember, you are absolutely unique, just like everyone else. And when the uphill battle was like way uphill, way too long, Sid would be like, you didn't come this far to only come this far. And hey, what you do makes a difference, because it does. And it isn't what we say or think that defines us, but what we do. Put good thoughts into action. Believe you can, and you are halfway there. And on community television, in a news article way long ago, this is what Sid had to say about people power. Well, nothing beats people power. I'm convinced of that now, because if something did, we'd all be dead now. There would be no left. There would be nothing that's going on. You wouldn't have a homeless person from the community on TV talking about things we need to do. So there is something out there, people power. And I think people in the world, good people or even bad people, they realize that you need to control the media for good or bad. And as we've heard from a number of people on this community TV front, it sure is an education, and highly recommended to anyone who wants to know what their community is really all about. And to end, this is a quote by Sid Chow, Canadian human rights and environmental activist. My art is activism, my trade is organizing.
All right.
This is a song for Sid's legacy. Sid sent his love over the airwaves. Sid sent his love over TV. Sid sent his love to our communities in solidarity.
So we came together and we were invited by Sid's friend Elwin to contribute a video for Sid's celebration of life. Most of us met Sid many, many years ago when some, at the time, young people came into Chinatown to organize around the gentrification that was happening there and doing work with housing justice and intergenerational organizing from young people to Chinese-speaking seniors. And a lot of us worked very closely with Sid, and some of us continue to work with Sid over the years. So we would just want to share some of our memories from that time. I'm Janie. I'm also called Lingxi.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
I'm Cynthia.
I'm Sophie.
I'm Victoria.
I'm Byron.
And we're wanting to take a little bit of time just to share some of our favorite memories of Sid. For me, when we were holding lengthy meetings at Carnegie, we had this very ambitious idea of doing a multi-day retreat. And during one of those days, we found out that Sid had gotten sick and was stuck in his apartment the whole day, and he wasn't able to attend the retreat. But when we saw him later at the hospital, we learned that he was on the floor just thinking about the retreat the whole time and about how he was missing this meeting. And it's just an example of how much he believed in our group and how much he believed in our collective power for community change. And that's something that will always stay with me. And his belief in us has really continued for us to doing the work that we do in the community. So thank you so much, Sid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely to echo what the sentiments everybody else has shared, I think it was really incredible how Sid was such a force for change and encouragement of particularly the young people, but also just everybody to fight the good fight. Like Sid made sure that we knew that he was thinking of us and encouraged us to do things that pushed me and I think other members like so far out of our comfort zones to like go on TV. Like it's not even something I ever imagined I would do, but Sid was like, you can do it. You got this. And he helped us get there again and again to get our message out and to share and to continue fighting for what we believed in. And that's really incredible.
Yeah, and so these are just some of the stories of how Sid has touched our lives and left us with many gifts. And there's a lot of other people that we've organized together with alongside Sid over the years, and they weren't able to make it, but they send their love as well.
Yeah, and just to end, we thought we would do a chant together. This was something that we used to do in our meetings, and we recorded them as language learning videos. And this is one particular chant that Sid really loved that he kept posting on Facebook even years after. And I always, whenever I was on Facebook, I just saw him post it, and I think he really enjoyed this one.
In Cantonese, we say,
Yaman Lek Lang.
In English, we say,
people power.
All together now.
Yaman Lek Lang. People power.
Hello and welcome to Access Community Television. My name is Sid Tan, and today we're here with Melissa Fong. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Melissa is a anti-feminist.
Not true. I'm definitely not anti-feminist.
Okay, let's do that again. So here we go. Hello, I'm Sid Chow Tan, good time man, from East Van, by way of Saskatchewan. I was born in China in a mud and straw hut. Village elders and farm animals were charmed when two bright stars rose in the sky. Some could even hear a celestial choir. I'm a Gold Mountain dragon, a Rocky Mountain warrior. Tough? The other day, my friends and I had a contest to see who could eat a live rat the fastest. You got it. I won. I got steel wires for guts. I got concrete in my bones. I got fire in my blood. I've been called a Navajo. I've been called Juan from Mexico. I've been called Carlo the Filipino. But my favorite is still Good Time Joe. That's why I'm known around the world. I can cook better, eat more, run faster, jump higher, love longer, sleep deeper, and yell and shout louder than anybody I know. I can act dumber too than anybody, with the exception of my Uncle Charlie's. That'd be Charlie Kwan and Charlie Chin, who I learned from. There's not a single person alive that can't make a fool out of me. That's how tough I am. I learned this myself. The hard way, of course. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the reasons why you should vote Sid Chow Tan for Vancouver City Council.
Hey, Sid!
First of all, thank you all so much for being here today, the family here. And a few things. I need to let you know that this, what you're seeing right now, almost didn't happen because we had a power failure in this building just before you showed up. And the other thing, of course, was the blizzard. So I think Sid was probably just testing me. Well, you didn't rent the generator, okay? So, all right. So I hope I hope Sid doesn't give me crap for this. So just in closing, I composed a few words, and I'll just read it to you, all right? So while Sid was involved with many organizations and causes over the decades, Sid was most consumed with the head tax exclusion issue. For him, it was personal. He saw firsthand how legislative racial discrimination broke up families. Sid and the head tax families did not achieve all they hoped for. However, thanks to Sid, Victor Wong, Hanson Lau, MP Margaret Mitchell, Charlie Kwan, and Gim Wong, their decades of advocacy on the fringes paid off, whereby the issue of head tax exclusion is no longer relegated to the margins of society. Today, students learn this dark chapter of Canadian history. Were it not for their relentless and tireless campaigning, apology money would not have been received by communities across Canada to undertake meaningful Chinese-Canadian projects as diverse as films, plays, symphonies, and even an opera. Sid helped raise the level of consciousness of Chinese-Canadian history, and that attention has helped justify the existence of not one, but 2 permanent spaces to commemorate that history. First one, the Chinatown Storytelling Center, which opened a year ago, and secondly, the Chinese Canadian Museum, which will open next year on July the 1st, 2023, the 100th anniversary of exclusion. The museum's inaugural exhibition will be The Paper Trail to the 1923 Exclusion, which will display hundreds of head tax certificates, which, this would have been right up Sid Tan's alley, right? So it is unfortunate the gala opening of this monumental head tax project will occur after Sid's passing. If the new Chinese Canadian Museum opens without acknowledging the original head tax redress trailblazing activists, you can be confident that Sid will be holding another press conference from his perch up in his Gold Mountain retreat, setting things straight. Of course, all the while smoking a big, fat, honking fatty. And when will this take place? At 4:20, of course. That's a safety meeting. Right? So in standing up for the marginal and the powerless, he was a ferocious and outspoken advocate. He drew strength from his alter ego, Guangdong. You see that right here. All right? The mythic Chinese-Canadian protector of warriors, revered for his righteousness, loyalty, compassion, and fierceness. He became our modern-day Guangdong. As a video documentarian, he recorded history in the making by shining a light on society's injustices. In so doing, he amassed an incredible treasure trove of video footage, thereby making history himself. Right about now, Sid would be saying, all right, enough about me already. Don't just sit there and yak about me. Get off your rear ends and do something. Make the world a better place already. There's so much bloody frickin' injustice in the world, is what he would say right now. So thank you all for attending the celebration of Sid Chow Tan, Ju Ming Fui. As Sid frequently stated aloud, Lo Wa Q, oh yeah, overseas Chinese good stuff. Now, Sid gets the last word.
My audio check, and I just want to make clear, this is an audio check. Weaseling, wanking, cheating, conniving, lapdog lackeys of the soul-sucking corporate capitalist. Check 1. Audio check 1.